ها نحن نقف في وسط التاريخ الروماني في هذا المكان الذي يعود عمره إلى أكثر من 5000 سنة في قلب الدولة الرومانية. ترون خلفي الكوليسيوم أو كما يسمى بالمدرجات، وهذا هو أكبر مدرج تاريخي في كل العالم، يتسع لأكثر من 50,000 متفرج. فتخيلوا بأن هذا الكوليسيوم الكبير العظيم استغرق بناءه 10 سنوات فقط في ذلك الوقت مع أقل الموارد، ولكن 10 سنوات بنتها الدولة الرومانية، ولكن لعروض أشياء غريبة. تخيلوا أن احتفالاً بافتتاح هذا الكوليسيوم في ذلك الوقت أول 3 شهور قتل فيه 1000 مقاتل و5000 حيوان مفترس. أكيد مرت عليكم بعض المشاهد الدرامية والهوليودية اللي يقاتل فيها المقاتل حيوانات ومصارعة الحيوانات وإبراز القوة. نعم، خرجت من هذا المكان كما دون في التاريخ الروماني. وبالمناسبة مفهوم عسكرة الدولة خرج لأول مرة من الدولة الرومانية، فقد كانوا يتباهون بالقتل ويتباهون بالقوة العسكرية. عندما نقارن المسرح الإغريقي والمسرح الروماني نرى فروق كبيرة. فالرومان كانوا يتباهون بالقتل ويستخدمونه لأغراض قوة العسكر، أما الإغريق فهم كانوا يتباهون بالفلسفة والدراما والمسرح. وبالمناسبة حتى أن كلمة دراما هي كلمة أصلها إغريقي ومعناها أنا أفعل. دعونا وياكم نكتشف سر المسرح الدموي.
رأيت أجدادي هنا أخطو ويسبقني السنا، هنا الجبال هنا الجمال هنا المحبة هنا أوروبا. هنا العلوم القصور والعصور العصور الغابرة، هنا المتاحف والموسيقى الموسيقى الآسرة الموسيقى الآسرة. خطاي تسرع والأرض تبدع، خطاي تسرع والأرض تبدع. هنا الجبال هنا الجمال هنا المحبة هنا أوروبا.
لوكا.
Hi, Ali.
Buongiorno.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. مرحبتين. I'm happy to meet you لوكا. لوكا متخصص في التاريخ الروماني، بيعرفنا أكثر عن هذا التاريخ وفي هذا المكان المميز. I'm ready.
Let's start. Actually, everything you see in Rome is great because of high exploitation. So the Romans, they did.
ما شاء الله. This is amazing. Luca, how old is this place?
Well, it's going to be 2,000 years old. It was built between 72 and 80, talking about Christian area, so in the 1st century AD. It was a fast construction, so the work was a free gift for the Romans. They didn't pay taxes, they didn't work for the realization. A fast work without any working day time, working night and day. The beauty you see in Rome as a back of the medal, a slave exploitation.
تخيلوا بأن هذا المكان واقف منذ حوالي 2000 سنة، حتى أنهم استخدموا الكثير من الخبرات الدولية اللي في ذلك الوقت من الحضارات، من العرب ومن الروم ومن الإغريق ومن الكثير من الحضارات لبناء هذه الأعجوبة. Look, tell me about this engineer. Look, I'm trying to imagine 2,000 years, this engineer is still standing like this?
Yes, and talking about the engineeristic point of view, you have to know that the Romans were joining all the cultural news from the countries they invaded. So imagine the architects that built Petra in Jordan, the architects of the pyramids in Egypt, the sculptors and the painters of Greece were all made together working. Often I use the idea of the open source. Everybody can give his free contribution. Actually, the architects were not so free, were slaves. But it's better to be slave architect than not to be slave gladiator. So everybody was happy to contribute once was obliged to give a new culture like Rome. And it's in bad conditions because survived several earthquakes.
They used a lot of engineers, a lot of artists, a lot of knowledge, I would say, from many different cultures around the world. At that time, we're talking about almost 2,000 years. Why this monument and this Colosseum is very important to the society at that time?
Well, actually, it was a good point of propaganda. The family that built and financed the Colosseum were the Flavians, composed by 3 emperors, Vespasian, Titus and Domitian, and when they arrived to the power, they were not famous, they were nobody. So how to be appreciated by the Romans with the gifts? A stadium where the Romans were not working and they didn't have to pay any tax, a free gift. And then the games were for free and the food was given. When we say bread and show, is because the basic needs of the population, amusement and stomach, were under control. You know something dangerous? The emperors were 2/3 killed. We got more or less 81 emperors. 54 of them, they were killed, assassinated. So it was really important to seduce the people with shows, to become the people, not to kill the emperor. It's a propaganda machine.
عندما نرى هذا المكان أعزائي المشاهدين هو كان يستخدم لأغراض الترفيه. تطلب الكثير من الهندسة اللي حول العالم فقط من أجل الترفيه. هنا يمكننا أن نستشعر قوة الدولة الرومانية في ذلك الوقت. I'm trying to understand the engineer here. Is this under the surface or above the surface?
Well, these corridors were under the surface. It was a kind of backstage. You know, when you go to the theater, behind the stage are coming the surprises. But here you don't have a back. It's all sitting people. So 2 underground floors were the backstage, under the so-called arena. From high, I will tell you better about the arena, what does it mean and why it was so important. Today we have a reconstruction, but from the first floor it will be easier to see that. Please follow me.
Tell me about the arena here.
So we got more than 40, 50 elevators. Somebody says 60. Why? The Colosseum was a kind of discovery channel for the Romans, not to talk about a kind of competitor, but was presenting the far destination in Rome. People couldn't travel, just the soldiers were traveling, so let's bring a taste of Egypt. People from Egypt, animals, plants from Egypt, palm trees, tigers, lions, were coming from the stomach of the Colosseum. Normally, the motors were human motors. Somebody was pulling the pulling machines all the day for the best show. And there was a stage. You can see just a bit is a reconstruction because it was made in wood. Originally, the big one was covering all the arena. Why it's called arena? In Latin, still today, Italian and Spanish, arena means sand, like on the sea coast, because this stage was covered by sand. 3 motivations. One is to hide the trapdoors through which the animals, the people is coming, the gladiators. One is not to fall down the gladiators running. One is to absorb liters of blood. Noses, ears, weapons, everything broken comes to stay on the arena. And like in tennis, match by match, somebody cleans the arena, ready for a new game. So the name Sand Arena gives the name to a place for competitions like the Colosseum today.
Tell me about the battles that happened here.
Well, actually, we got reconstructions of historical battles or just duels, sometimes epic. Almost were duels. The gladiators were fighting in a couple. And it started like a celebration of funerals into the Etruscan culture, so the pre-culture of the Romans, but the Romans made a star system. Notice some of the names of the gladiators are famous still today. Maybe you heard about Spartacus and Maximus, where they became famous like soccer players or actors in the TV. Well, we know that a good gladiator was a big investment. That's why it's not true that many of them, they died on the arena. The most expensive, the most famous, the heroes of the people were surviving. Yes.
سبحان الله، لكل زمان دولة ورجال. عندما نقارن الجلاديترز في ذلك الوقت فهم اليوم أشبه بلعيبة كرة القدم مثل ميسي ورونالدو اللي كانوا يباعون بأرقام خيالية وفلكية في ذلك الوقت. الجلاديترز اليوم نشبههم بلعيبة كرة القدم. Tell me about the nobles. Where did they sit to watch the games?
But actually today you don't see the seats, but you have a short reconstruction. If you look in front of us, there are kind of white and brown seats. This is one slice of a ring, because the Colosseum was a stadium like the stadiums of today, so you see just the bones, the skeleton, but there were surfaces with steps over which the population was sitting and was divided into social classes. So as today, as much as you pay, close you are to the action. The close ring, the first one, were the senators. Here there was a tribune for the emperors, after them the senators, then the equites, a kind of middle class, horsemen, not noble but rich enough to buy a horse, strong in the war, strong into the place to see the competitions. Then there was free people, normal people, then slaves and ladies at the last floor. There was a social segregation and a gender segregation. You see the scaffolds are restoring the last floor, where plebeians and non-nobles. So the nobles were close to the action. And if you look well, you see there is no a circle, but an ellipsis. Because stretching an X, the people sitting along at the minor X can have a best view. So the emperors will have the better view because sitting on the side of the short X of the ellipsis.
وبالمناسبة فكرة تصميم ملاعب كرة القدم أتت من هنا. عندما نرى هذا المكان فعلا كأنك قاعد في ملعب كرة قدم.
Let me tell you about the inauguration games. The person that got the idea of the Colosseum, Vespasian, the emperor, he died a year before the inauguration. So Titus, his son, he sponsorized the games, 100 days of bank holiday, 5,000 animals, 2,000 gladiators, more or less, used for a good show. You can imagine how cruel and blood there was running into the arena.
I would like to compare it to the Greeks.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
the Greeks is so different.
yeah, the Greek culture is more theater, concerts, but you know what? The Romans said they won in Greece because the Greeks were too much interested in philosophy and theater. They were strong soldiers and they were used to see blood. If you go as the Greeks, you will die. Well, when the Romans, they arrived to be close to the Greeks, enjoying too much luxury, it's true, they lost their power because a new population, new waves of people, needy and poor, took their place, the barbarians. So it's true, the Greeks were completely different, but when the Romans, they arrived close to the Greeks, they lost their power.
Blood is luxury here and philosophy is luxury
It's
here.
actually there.
Is here the birthplace of Rome?
No, we'll go in a few minutes. We'll go on the Palatine Hill.
I can't wait for it.
Let's go.
Yes.
This one, for example, was a dining room.
A
can
dining
see.
only room.
And yeah, it was for dinners. The emperors could have a dinner here. You can see the lavish decoration was a rich marble. Under the pavement, there was a system to heat the room during winter. You can see there are rectangles in which vapors were coming and then windows were heating with the sun hit the room. So with friends to show off the power of the emperor.
So look, tell me about the marble here.
All the marbles came from the colonies of the Roman Empire. Let's say the discs you see there, the violet one is porphyry, is a quality from Egypt. Was so expensive and rare, was just used by pharaohs and emperors.
تخيلوا أن في هذه الغرفة التقنيات الموجودة فيها غير الآثار الفنية الجميلة بأنها كانت مغطاة بالزجاج لموسم الشتاء. القزاز هذا تدخل منه أشعة الشمس في تدفي المكان، وليس ذلك فحسب، بل أن حتى الرخام هذا مثل ما نشوف الحفر اللي تحت الرخام، في نفس الحفر هذه كانوا يحطون فيها النار حتى يتم تدفئة الرخام من الداخل. So who lived here? Which emperor lived here?
Well, we got many emperors from Augustus was that behind was a small house till more or less the time of Constantine, when the capital of Rome, the Roman Empire, was moved on the east, what is Istanbul of today, Constantinople, 330 more or less. So many emperors lived in here. You can say Augustus, you can say Vespasian, the emperor that financed the Colosseum.
How big was Roma at that time?
Well, let me tell you just about Augustus, the first of the emperors. Under Augustus, the town of Rome reached 1 million inhabitants. It was a megalopolis. Another town in these centuries around the globe was 20,000 people. So Rome, 1 million, and another town, 20,000. It was an opportunity to come in Rome. People could get rich, and opportunities, slaves imported. Rome arrived on the top, on the north of Africa, and was arriving, climbing north of Europe. We touched with Julius Caesar London. We tasted London. Then later on we colonized London, Spain, France, Germany, and was a huge place that was invading, killing, but then giving opportunities to the people.
Killing and giving opportunities.
The first invasion is to kill people. You make the war, but then if you are good, you come in Rome and you can find business with Rome.
It was big empire.
Into the place where the roots of Rome are. That's the small village where we believe that Romulus was living.
إذن أعزائي المشاهدين، من هنا ولادة الدولة الرومانية وبدت روما اللي نعرفها اليوم. So here was the foundation of Rome.
Yes, maybe you know the history of Rome, at least the epic history of Rome. We believe that a couple of twins called Romulus and Remus fought to decide who was the founder of Rome. They took a certain time to count the flying birds. One from here, Romulus, is the Palatine Hill, another one from another hill called Aventine, Remus, where the number of birds was favorable to Romulus. Well, we don't believe that Romulus was a true name, but we believe that it was a real man because the archaeologists have found here traces of a village. What you can understand, today you find just a number of holes in a circle or in a rectangle. These are the places where the trunks of the trees were placed with a raw roof in straw to make a hood, a house of the antique people. 753 BC. How we can be sure? Archaeologists with new technologies, carbon-14 or X-rays, can date the materials found in between the village. Why this place here? Because the Palatine, it's a kind of tower watching at the river, the Tiber, the river of Rome. So it's a place to control traffic, tradings, to have water, to go to the sea. So it's a favorite place to dominate the traders and to have protection by them if attacking. Another motivation why this place is important is because Augustus knew that here were the founders of Rome. How do we know? To the left was made the temple. So Augustus said, if was made a temple as a memory of the founders of Rome, we can trust them. And straight after, there was the Augustus house. So what's the purpose? Augustus wants to be linked to the founders of Rome. The kings, later the emperors. So this is really an important place.
ومن هنا بدأت نواة روما اللي نعرفها احنا اليوم. روما التي وصلت إلى العالمية بدأت من هذه النقطة. وهناك أسطورة تقول بأن هناك توأم بالقرب من هذا النهر تاها ورضعتهما ذئبة، وكان اسمائهما رومولوس وريموس. رومولوس وريموس، عندما ندقق بالأسماء نكتشف بأن اسم روما اشتق من أسمائهم. رومولوس وريموس اللذان أسسا نواة روما التي لا زالت واقفة إلى يومنا هذا. We need more time definitely to discover this place. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. It was really nice to invite you.
الشخصيات جدلاً في التاريخ الروماني هي شخصية نيرون. هذا الشخص الذي حرق كل روما بسبب عدم قبول الشعب والسكان له، لأنه كان حاكماً بالتبني ولم يكن من الأسرة الحاكمة في ذلك الوقت. وتقول الرواية أيضاً بأنه كان جالساً فوق هذه التلة مستمعاً للأغاني خلال حرق روما الذي دام لأكثر من 7 أيام. وهناك مثل روماني يقول: أشد من نار نيرون. اجتازت سمعة حريق روما كل أوروبا لسنوات عديدة، وكانت ذكرى سيئة في أذهان الكثيرين هنا. وعندما حكمت أسرة فلافيا مباشرة من بعد نيرون، بنت هذا المعلم المميز إعلاناً عن انطلاق روما الجديدة. هذا كان في سنة 70 بعد الميلاد. وهنا أعزائي المشاهدين نصل إلى خاتمة هذا المكان. يتطلب منا هذا المكان أكثر من 30 حلقة للتحدث عن التاريخ الروماني، ولكن تعودنا في خطى الرحالة أن نأخذ القليل من كل شيء.
مصارعو الحيوانات في المسرح الروماني نسخة أولى من نجوم الكرة في أيامنا. إنهم الجلاديترز الذين أسسوا بمسرحهم المخيف فكرة ملاعب كرة القدم، مع الفارق بين الفرجة على كرة يتقاذفها لاعبون صاروا نجوم الصالونات الراقية، والفرجة على جثث تمزقت على أنصال السيوف وأنياب الوحوش الكاسرة.